He was on trial with no lawyer, but when the judge saw his name, she refused to speak another word. And the charges vanished. The courtroom was a crucible of hushed whispers and thinly veiled contempt, each murmur a sharp shard of judgment directed at the figure in its center. There, frail and disheveled, sat Agnes, her frame shrinking under the harsh fluorescent lights, a worn gray cardigan clinging to her slumped shoulders. Her eyes, though clouded with age and seemingly dim, held an unexpected glint, a spark of anticipation that defied the gravity of her situation. She appeared a broken woman, a tired soul at the end of her tether, yet beneath the carefully constructed facade, a profound inner stillness resided. The air thrummed with the prosecuting attorney, Evelyn Thorne, a predator in a tailored suit, her posture rigid with self-importance. She was winding down her blistering summation, her voice a weapon dripping with scorn, each syllable designed to wound and diminish. This woman, Agnes, a repeat offender, a drain on society, a blight upon our community, deserves the full weight of the law, she declared, her arm extended in a dramatic gesture towards the slumped figure, as if casting a curse. Evelyn's voice, a polished instrument of accusation, echoed through the chamber, painting a vivid, damning portrait of Agnes as a cunning, irredeemable thief. She spoke of Agnes's supposed rap sheet, a string of petty infractions that Evelyn had inflated into a chronicle of criminality, each incident presented as irrefutable proof of a life spent in defiance of order. Her words were not just legal arguments, they were a performance, calculated to inflame the jury and secure an easy, decisive victory. Caspian Vance, seated in the gallery, shifted uncomfortably in his expensive suit, a sneer barely concealed on his aristocratic face. His gaze darted around the room, avoiding Agnes's eyes, as if her very presence might tarnish his pristine image. He saw only a pathetic old woman, a public embarrassment, an inconvenient blot on his otherwise perfect day. He was utterly oblivious to the seismic shift about to occur, blind to the true identity of the woman on trial, her meticulous charade hidden beneath layers of simulated frailty and calculated vulnerability. Agnes, though, felt a strange lightness, a serene calm settling over her, a counterpoint to the storm raging around her. The game, she knew, was finally reaching its crescendo. She had played her part flawlessly, endured every indignity, every scathing word, every dismissive glance. Her spirit, far from being crushed, was invigorated by the proximity of the truth. Soon, the masquerade would end. Soon, the masks would drop, not hers, but those of the people who thought they held power over her, who had judged her, dismissed her, and sought to exploit her apparent weakness. She knew the judge was about to ask for her full, legal name for the record, a mere formality before the inevitable conviction. But it would be anything but. It would be the key that unlocked the true nature of her grand design. Your Honor, Agnes's voice, surprisingly clear despite its feigned tremor, cut through the tense silence, a thread of unexpected steel woven into its seemingly fragile timbre. I believe the time for charades is over. A ripple of confused murmurs spread through the gallery, a collective intake of breath. Evelyn Thorne paused, a condescending smile playing on her lips, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. Playing games now, Agnes, she scoffed, exchanging an amused glance with Caspian, who chuckled softly, his contempt for the old woman evident in the sound. You have nothing left to hide. He believed her cornered, stripped bare, ready for the final blow. Agnes's eyes, however, fixed on Evelyn, then on Caspian, a silent, knowing look that sent a shiver down Evelyn's spine, though she quickly dismissed it as the ramblings of a senile old woman, a last desperate act of defiance. The judge, perturbed by the unexpected outburst, leaned forward, her brow furrowed. Miss Agnes, do you have something to add before the verdict? Her voice was firm, yet held a hint of weary patience. Only this, Agnes replied, her voice gaining an unexpected steeliness, shedding the last vestiges of its feigned weakness. The verdict has already been rendered, Miss Thorne, though not in this courtroom. The game is indeed over. And she assured Thorne, with a chilling certainty, that Thorne had lost. A sudden, profound silence descended, broken only by the rapid beating of hearts. Evelyn Thorne's smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of irritation, a dawning unease that she couldn't quite place. Caspian Vance, sensing a shift he couldn't grasp, leaned forward, a frown creasing his brow, his usual nonchalance replaced by a nascent anxiety. The judge looked on, a flicker of curiosity in her gaze, an almost imperceptible widening of her eyes. This extraordinary moment, hanging precariously between accusation and revelation, was the culmination of months, indeed years, of meticulous planning, a desperate social experiment orchestrated by a woman who had once stood at the pinnacle of human ingenuity. Elara Vance, at 72, was not merely wealthy, she was the reclusive visionary behind Synthetica Solutions, a pioneering AI and robotics conglomerate that had reshaped industries and redefined the very concept of progress. Her intellect was legendary, her foresight almost prophetic, her innovations bordering on the miraculous. She had built an empire on the bedrock of her genius, creating technologies that seamlessly integrated into daily life, solving complex problems, and improving the human condition in ways few could have imagined. Yet, in the twilight of her life, surrounded by the dazzling fruits of her unparalleled success, Elara felt a profound and gnawing disillusionment. It began subtly, a creeping unease as she observed her potential heirs and the high-flying executives who managed her vast empire. Her grandnephew, Caspian Vance, was a prime example. Charming on the surface, with a polished veneer of sophistication, he possessed an insatiable appetite for extravagance and a startling lack of empathy. He spoke eloquently of legacy, of carrying on her vision, but Elara saw only a ravenous desire for inheritance, a longing to dismantle her life's work for immediate, personal gain. His eyes, when he spoke of the future of Synthetica, glittered with avarice, not ambition. He was not alone. Board meetings, once vibrant forums for innovation and ethical discourse, became battlegrounds of corporate espionage and petty backstabbing, where loyalty was a commodity, bought and sold, and compassion a glaring weakness, ridiculed and exploited. Her executives, once driven by the shared vision of innovation and the betterment of humanity, had become slaves to quarterly reports and ever-climbing stock prices, their eyes gleaming with an insatiable hunger for more. They spoke of progress, but only measured it in profit margins. Elara had built Synthetica Solutions on principles of ethical AI, aiming to solve humanity's greatest challenges, to create a future where technology served mankind, not controlled it. She envisioned a world where her creations fostered equality, alleviated suffering, and unlocked new potentials for human flourishing. But the empire she created had become a gilded cage, trapping not just her immense wealth, but her very ideals. She saw her life's purpose being corrupted, her legacy teetering on the brink of being inherited by those who valued only the material, who would strip her achievements bare for personal enrichment, leaving behind a hollow shell of her grand design. The thought of her life's work, her intellectual progeny, falling into such rapacious hands was a torment, a constant ache in her soul. She tried, initially, to engage them, to rekindle the spark of altruism she once believed was inherent in humanity, a fundamental goodness that simply needed to be nurtured. She organized philanthropic initiatives, poured millions into charitable causes through Synthetica's corporate social responsibility programs, and spoke passionately of the profound obligation they had to use their power for good. But her words fell on deaf ears, or were met with cynical smiles and superficial nods. They saw her attempts as eccentricities, the ramblings of an old woman out of touch with modern business, an impediment to their relentless pursuit of profit. The more she pushed, the more their true colors shone through, cold, calculating, devoid of genuine care for anything beyond their own self-interest. They dismissed her ideals as quaint, her concerns as senile anxieties. It was this profound disappointment, this erosion of trust in the very people she had hoped would carry her torch, that sparked the radical idea. Elara needed to know, truly know, if there was any light left in the darkness, any shred of unadulterated kindness amidst the pervasive greed. She decided to stage a social experiment, a test of character administered not in a sterile boardroom or through carefully constructed surveys, but in the gritty, unforgiving arena of everyday life, where appearances mattered less than instinct, and where true character was forged or revealed under pressure. She would strip herself of every vestige of her identity, her immense wealth, her formidable power, and present herself as the epitome of vulnerability and destitution. She would become Agnes. The transformation was meticulous, years in the making, drawing upon her deep understanding of human psychology, her vast resources, and her unparalleled attention to detail. She hired a team of discreet specialists, makeup artists, costume designers, even dialect coaches, all bound by ironclad non-disclosure agreements. They meticulously crafted the persona of Agnes, focusing on every minute detail. Her appearance was altered to suggest years of hardship, fine lines deepened with prosthetics, her once vibrant skin subtly modeled, her hair thinned and dulled. She studied the gait of the elderly poor, the subtle mannerisms of those accustomed to hardship, the way their eyes held a mixture of resignation and quiet dignity. She practiced moving slowly, with a slight shuffle, speaking with a feigned tremor that conveyed frailty, dressing in worn, drab clothing that swallowed her slender frame and masked her true figure. She even subtly altered her dental work to give the impression of neglect, and applied prosthetics to age her hands and face further, making her virtually unrecognizable even to those closest to her. Agnes was not just a disguise, she was a complete immersion, a carefully constructed illusion designed to evoke pity, indifference, or contempt, depending on the observer. She chose a small, dilapidated apartment in a low-income neighborhood, living on a carefully allocated, meager budget, experiencing firsthand the daily struggles of those she sought to emulate. She rode public transport, frequented soup kitchens, and navigated the bureaucratic maze of social services, ensuring her experience was as authentic as possible. The purpose of the minor legal entanglement was critical. It couldn't be too severe, lest it jeopardize her ability to control the experiment and risk genuine, irreversible harm, but it had to be significant enough to thrust her into the heart of the justice system, to force interactions with the very types of people she sought to test, the ambitious and heartless, the indifferent and cynical, and, hopefully, the compassionate and truly just. She chose a seemingly innocuous act, a petty shoplifting charge, a trivial item from a large chain store, a designer scarf easily dismissed as an oversight by a confused old woman, or blown out of proportion by an ambitious prosecutor seeking an easy win. She made sure the act was witnessed, the evidence just compelling enough to warrant an arrest and a court appearance, yet ambiguous enough to allow for genuine doubt about her culpability. She wanted to see how the system, and the individuals within it, would treat someone utterly powerless, someone who seemingly had nothing to offer, no connections, no influence, no one to speak for them. This was not about proving her innocence, it was about proving the character of others. The carefully orchestrated arrest landed her precisely where she wanted to be, in the cold, impersonal machinery of the legal system. The police officers who apprehended her were dismissive, their eyes already glazed over with judgment, their demeanor reflecting a weariness born of countless similar encounters. She was just another statistic, another nuisance to be processed. At the precinct, she was handled with perfunctory efficiency, her feigned pleas of confusion met with weary sighs and a hurried recitation of her rights. She was given a public defender, a young woman named Lena, whose exhaustion was palpable, but whose eyes, to Agnes's careful observation, held a flicker of something different, a spark of genuine concern amidst the fatigue, a rare commodity in such surroundings. From the moment Evelyn Thorne took on the case, Elara, as Agnes, felt the full force of her ruthless ambition. Thorne saw Agnes not as an individual with a story, but as a stepping stone, an easy win to pad her conviction record, a disposable pawn in her climb up the prosecutorial ladder. In pre-trial meetings, Thorne would lean back in her chair, a smirk on her face, listing Agnes's supposed criminal history, a fabricated record Elara had carefully crafted to make Agnes appear a troublemaker, a habitual offender. Honestly, Agnes, Thorne had drawled, her voice dripping with condescension, her words edged with thinly veiled contempt, do you truly expect anyone to believe you forgot you had a designer scarf in your bag? A woman of your station? She made no attempt to hide her disdain, her questions laced with thinly veiled accusations of senility and deliberate criminality. Agnes would respond with feigned confusion, a slight tremor in her hands, her eyes wide with a carefully practiced innocence, further fueling Thorne's conviction of her easy victory. Thorne once even suggested a plea bargain that was so ridiculously punitive, so utterly unjust for a minor offense, that it confirmed Alara's suspicions. Thorne was not interested in justice, but in dominance. She relished the idea of crushing the helpless, of adding another notch to her belt, of showcasing her unyielding power. She would cut Agnes off mid-sentence, roll her eyes, and openly discuss her weekend plans with her assistant while Agnes spoke, showing a profound lack of respect, an almost theatrical display of indifference. Then there was Caspian. Alara had arranged for him to be present in the courthouse on the day of Agnes's trial, under the pretense of a different, fabricated corporate matter. It was a calculated risk, but a necessary part of the experiment. When Agnes saw him in the bustling hallway, amidst the cacophony of the courthouse, her heart ached with a complex mixture of familial affection and profound disappointment. She approached him, her voice carefully hoarse, her posture stooped, the very picture of an ailing elderly relative. "Caspian, my dear boy," she whispered, a subtle, almost imperceptible hint of her true voice in the words, a test of his recognition. "It's me, Alara. Don't you recognize me?" Caspian, distracted by his phone, engrossed in a financial report, barely glanced up. His eyes, scanning her disheveled appearance, widened in disgust, his perfect features contorting into a grimace. He recoiled slightly, taking a step back, as if contact with her might be contaminating. "Excuse me, ma'am. I think you have me confused with someone else," he mumbled, his voice tight with embarrassment, scanning the crowded hallway to see if anyone had noticed the interaction, his concern for his reputation overriding any familial recognition. "I don't know any, Alara. You must be mistaken." He quickly pivoted, disappearing into the throng, leaving Agnes standing alone, a bitter smile playing on her lips. He didn't just ignore her, he actively discredited her, dismissing her as a confused vagrant, a potential embarrassment to his carefully curated image. Later, during a lunch break in the courthouse cafeteria, Agnes subtly sat near him, attempting to catch his eye, dropping veiled hints about Synthetica solutions or family anecdotes, small tests of his memory and his empathy. Each time, Caspian would either pretend not to hear her, or give her a look of utter contempt, burying himself deeper into his phone, clearly viewing her supposed indigence as an embarrassment and an obstacle to his inheritance. He even went so far as to call a security guard to complain about a delusional old woman bothering patrons, a cruel, definitive rejection. But amidst the calculating ambition of Thorne and the callous indifference of Caspian, there was Lena. Lena Petrova, the junior public defender assigned to Agnes's case, was a stark contrast to the cutthroat world around her. She was young, barely out of law school, weighed down by a crushing caseload and the cynicism of her veteran colleagues. Her office was a cramped cubicle piled high with files, her clothes often rumpled from long nights working on pro bono cases, her face etched with the lines of perpetual exhaustion. Yet, despite her struggles, despite the overwhelming odds stacked against her, Lena possessed an unwavering belief in justice and a profound sense of empathy, qualities that felt increasingly rare in the legal world. From their first meeting, Lena treated Agnes with respect, listening patiently to her rambling, feigned explanations, never once interrupting or dismissing her. She never scoffed, never condescended. She genuinely believed Agnes was either innocent, a victim of circumstance, or simply a confused old woman caught in the system's merciless gears, deserving of a fair defense regardless. Lena spent countless hours poring over the case file, researching obscure legal precedents, even visiting the scene of the alleged crime herself, trying to find an angle, a loophole, anything that could help her client. Her colleagues told her to cut her losses, to push for a quick plea deal, to save herself the time and effort on a hopeless case, but Lena refused. "Everyone deserves a fair fight," she had told Agnes one weary evening, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep, especially those who can't fight for themselves. She even brought Agnes a thermos of hot tea and a sandwich from her own meager lunch, a small act of kindness that shone brighter than any legal maneuver, a gesture of pure, unadulterated human compassion. Lena was not just her lawyer, she was her advocate, her only beacon of hope in a system designed to crush the vulnerable. She saw Alara's frail disguise and felt a responsibility, a deep human connection, that transcended the professional. She even fought with Evelyn Thorne, attempting to negotiate a fairer outcome, to argue for a less punitive approach, only to be met with Thorne's cruel laughter and dismissive waves of her hand, Thorne reveling in her perceived superiority. Lena persevered, her small acts of kindness and her unwavering commitment to justice painting a vivid portrait of true character, a stark contrast to the darkness around her. The trial itself was a grueling spectacle, each moment a test of Agnes's endurance. Evelyn Thorne, sharp and merciless, dissected Agnes's testimony, twisting her every word, painting her as a cunning, manipulative thief, a menace to public order. She presented the fabricated evidence with theatrical flair, making a mountain out of a molehill, her voice resonating with righteous indignation. Lena, though outmatched by Thorne's experience and resources, fought valiantly. She cross-examined witnesses with quiet determination, presented the few mitigating factors she could find, and argued passionately for compassion and understanding. She cited Agnes's advanced age, her apparent confusion, the trivial nature of the alleged theft, trying to appeal to the jury's humanity. She even attempted to call Caspian Vance to the stand, hoping to use his family connection to portray Agnes as a person of previous standing, someone who deserved more than contempt, but he deftly avoided the subpoena, claiming an urgent business trip abroad, reinforcing his cruel disavowal and his utter lack of concern for the woman he believed to be his destitute grandaunt. The judge, a stern but fair woman named Justice Eleanor Vance, a distant cousin Alara had not seen in decades, but whose reputation for integrity was well known, listened with an unreadable expression. Her gaze, though impassive, missed little. She had known of Alara Vance's philanthropic endeavors, her anonymous donations to various legal aid societies, even one that supported Lena's public defender office. A flicker of recognition, a subtle tightening around her eyes, passed when she heard the names Vance and Synthetica mentioned, however briefly, during the trial, though she dismissed it as coincidence. As the trial neared its conclusion, and the arguments faded into a tense silence, Justice Vance turned to Agnes, her voice calm but authoritative. "Before we proceed to deliberation," she stated, her voice resonating through the quiet courtroom, "for the record, Ms. Agnes, please state your full, legal name." This was it. The moment Alara had been building towards, the crescendo of her intricate symphony of truth. She took a deep breath, her heart, despite the feigned frailty, beating with a triumphant rhythm. She straightened her shoulders ever so slightly, a subtle shift that went unnoticed by most, but not by Lena, who felt a sudden, inexplicable sense of awe, a premonition of something extraordinary. Agnes's voice, no longer trembling, clear and resonant, filled the courtroom, each syllable a declaration. "My full legal name," she articulated slowly, each syllable precise, deliberate, drawing out the tension, "is Alara Vance." A collective gasp swept through the courtroom, a wave of stunned realization. Evelyn Thorne, who had been gathering her papers with a smug smile, her victory assured, froze, her eyes widening in disbelief, her jaw dropping. Caspian Vance, seated rigid in the gallery, felt a sudden, cold dread grip his stomach, a nauseating wave of recognition washing over him. His grandaunt, the legendary Alara Vance, founder of Synthetica Solutions, the reclusive titan of industry, was standing before him, disguised as a destitute old woman. The implications hit him like a physical blow, a tsunami of horrifying clarity. Justice Eleanor Vance, who had been poised to make a ruling, dropped her pen. The clatter echoed in the stunned silence. Her gaze, sharp and piercing, locked onto Alara's. Recognition, shock, and the dawning understanding washed over her face. The name Alara Vance was not just prominent, it was synonymous with unparalleled wealth, immense power, and a formidable reputation for integrity, albeit reclusive. The idea of that Alara Vance, disguised as a homeless woman, on trial for petty shoplifting, was utterly preposterous. It signaled a setup, an elaborate ruse, a profound injustice. Justice Vance had known of Alara Vance's philanthropic endeavors, her anonymous donations to various legal aid societies, even the very one that supported Lena's public defender office. The thought that such a woman would be reduced to this, or worse, that she would be framed and treated with such contempt, infuriated the judge, igniting a fierce sense of indignation within her. Proceedings halted. Justice Vance's voice thundered, cutting through the stunned silence like a cleaver. All charges against the individual identifying as Alara Vance are hereby dropped. Immediately. She slammed her gavel down, a resounding crack that echoed in the stunned courtroom, sealing the fate of many. This court will not tolerate such irregularities. Ms. Thorne, I will be requesting a full investigation into the nature of this prosecution. And Mr. Vance, her eyes landed on Caspian, cold and piercing, your presence here is noted. Evelyn Thorne stared, mouth agape, her face draining of color, her tailored suit suddenly feeling like a shroud. Her carefully constructed career, built on a foundation of ruthless ambition, crumbled around her in that instant. The charges against Agnes didn't just vanish, they were obliterated, leaving behind a gaping void where her anticipated victory had been. Caspian Vance, slumped in his seat, felt a cold sweat break out on his brow, his mind reeling. The entire facade had shattered, revealing the horrifying truth. He had publicly disowned his grand-aunt, the matriarch of the family, the sole owner of the fortune he coveted, the very person who held the keys to his future. The irony was a bitter, nauseating taste in his mouth, a metallic tang of regret. Lena, though shocked, felt a surge of exhilaration mixed with bewilderment. Her client, the frail old woman she had fought so hard for, was none other than Alara Vance, the legendary visionary. Her kindness, her unwavering faith, had been directed at a titan. The fallout was swift and devastating for some, unimaginably rewarding for others. Evelyn Thorne's career imploded with spectacular speed. The investigation initiated by Justice Vance unearthed a pattern of unethical conduct, of using minor cases to boost her conviction rates, of bullying vulnerable defendants, of manipulating evidence and testimony to secure convictions at any cost. The public outcry was immense, fueled by leaked details of her callous treatment of Agnes, now revealed as Alara Vance, and her predatory tactics. The Bar Association disbarred her, her law firm swiftly severed all ties, and the very ambition that had propelled her to prominence became her undoing. She found herself ostracized, unemployable, her reputation irrevocably stained. The prosecutor who had sought to destroy a frail old woman found her own life in ruins, a karmic retribution for her profound lack of empathy. Her mansion was foreclosed, her luxury cars repossessed, and her name became synonymous with professional disgrace, a cautionary tale whispered in legal circles. Caspian Vance's downfall was equally dramatic, though perhaps more agonizing. News of Alara Vance's social experiment, and his public disavowal of her, spread like wildfire through the elite circles he so desperately sought to impress and inhabit. Alara, now shedding the guise of Agnes, issued a terse public statement confirming her identity and the purpose of her experiment, a statement that resonated with cold, unwavering finality. She immediately, and unequivocally, disinherited Caspian, severing all financial ties, irrevocably cutting him off from the vast Vance fortune he had so greedily coveted. He was not only cut off from the immense wealth but also socially excommunicated, his name tainted by the very scandal he had sought to avoid. His carefully cultivated network of contacts evaporated overnight, his position on various corporate boards dissolved, and his desperate attempts to salvage his reputation were met with scorn and ridicule. The inheritance he had so brazenly coveted, for which he had sacrificed his own humanity, was snatched away, leaving him with nothing but the crushing weight of his own shame and the hollow echo of his contemptible actions. He tried desperately to reach Alara, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, but she remained unreachable, her silence a deafening testament to his profound failure, a final, unyielding judgment. For Lena Petrova, however, the revelation was a turning point beyond her wildest dreams, a moment that redefined her life's purpose. Immediately after the dropped charges, as the courtroom slowly emptied, Alara Vance, no longer Agnes, her eyes now clear and sharp, held a warmth Lena had never seen before. She approached Lena, a subtle smile gracing her lips. "Lena," Elara said, her voice rich with gratitude, resonating with newfound strength, "you are a rare light in a very dark world. You fought for Agnes when no one else would. You saw beyond the surface, beyond the labels, and upheld the true spirit of justice." Overwhelmed, Lena could only nod, tears welling in her eyes, a mixture of shock, relief, and profound emotion. Elara, true to her nature, did not offer Lena a simple cash reward. Instead, she offered her a partnership, a visionary opportunity that would allow Lena to amplify her innate goodness. She established a multi-million-dollar foundation, the Beacon Foundation for Legal Aid, dedicated to providing pro bono legal services to the underserved, to those who, like Agnes, found themselves caught in the system's unforgiving gears. She appointed Lena as its director, with an unprecedented level of autonomy and funding, trusting Lena implicitly. Lena was given not just a job, but a purpose, the resources to truly make a difference, to become a force for justice on a scale she had only ever dreamed of. Elara also ensured Lena received a substantial, quiet financial gift that allowed her to live comfortably and pursue her passion without the crushing burden of her previous financial struggles. Lena's initial shock gave way to an overwhelming sense of gratitude and renewed purpose. She was no longer just a struggling public defender, she was a force for good, empowered by the very person she had sought to help, her kindness amplified 1,000-fold, her impact reaching countless lives. Months later, Elara Vance sat in the serene solitude of her private study, overlooking the sprawling estate that was now hers alone to shape, her true identity firmly re-established. The experiment had been painful, confirming her deepest fears about the erosion of compassion and the pervasive nature of greed in the upper echelons of society. But it had also brought her an unexpected solace, a profound joy in discovering Lena, the beacon of true character, a testament to the enduring power of human kindness. Her vast fortune, once a source of anxiety and a magnet for avarice, was now a tool for genuine good, channeled through the hands of those who truly understood its purpose, those who valued humanity over material wealth. She had tested the depths of human depravity and, in doing so, had found the enduring strength of human kindness, a quiet, powerful force that existed even in the darkest corners. The story of Elara Vance, the visionary who became Agnes, became a quiet legend in certain circles, a stark reminder that true worth is not measured by material possessions, nor by societal status, but by the integrity of one's actions and the compassion one extends to others, especially when no one is watching, when there is nothing to gain. For it is truly in the crucible of adversity, when the masks are stripped away and the stakes are highest, that character is revealed, shining brightest against the backdrop of darkness. And as the world so often forgets, and so rarely remembers, goodness, in its purest form, always finds its own magnificent reward. If you found Elara's story as captivating and thought-provoking as we did, make sure to hit that like button. We've got more incredible tales of unexpected twists, moral dilemmas, and shocking reveals right here on our channel. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. What do you think was the most shocking part of Elara's experiment? Did Evelyn Thorne and Caspian Vance get what they deserved? And what would you do if you had Elara Vance's power to test the people around you? Share your thoughts in the comments below.